Hi, and welcome back. This is Penny Sansbury and Amy Cornell, and this is the Minisode of the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. And I just want to let everybody know, we had to re-record this. I totally fumbled the title again. What is wrong with me?
It is kind of a tongue twister. It definitely doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, it is kind of a tongue twister. Anyway, by the way, listeners, you'll note that when I asked what is wrong with me, Amy just went silent. She's probably thinking not enough hours in the day, Penny, to cover that. So today's show, we are going to talk about explaining, and this is kind of a weird thing, right? So as you probably know, unless you're living on Mars, which I'd kind of like to live on Mars right now, we are in an election season, right? And one of the things that you always hear people in the news talk about is if you have to explain your viewpoint as a politician, you're losing the argument, right? But that's actually very true for everything, right? If I'm on the phone with an author, and for example, and they got our proposal and they're looking at it and they're thinking, none of this makes any sense to me whatsoever, and I have to spend my time explaining to them, they're probably never going to work with us. It's kind of a weird dynamic. And Amy, you and I have talked about this many times as we correlate this to book pages, books on Amazon. And it doesn't have to necessarily be book pages, although there's that. Book covers, book titles. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree, because I feel like, and a lot of where we also run into this, Penny, is where when we first start chatting with an author, and our goal is always to start making those buyer market connections. Where does this fit in the best? Where does it make the most sense? And you and I both start getting nervous when the author has a hard time explaining what the book is about, who the book is for. And you and I both know from dealing with this enough times that it's usually a very rocky start, that doesn't bode well for, the follow-up to that, or the initial marketing push and things like that. If the author is really doesn't have a clear vision for why they did something or who they wrote it for, if they find themselves over explaining and trying to convince us why it works and things like that, it's really hard to imagine that if we can't get on board with that and figure it out right away, it would be impossible for somebody just browsing on Amazon to make any connection with that book.
Absolutely. So here is if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, okay, I get it, but I don't get it. If you find that you are having to explain your book or your book title or your cover or anything related to your book, if you've caught yourself explaining that one too many times, you have a problem that you need to address. Whether the cover's not spot on, whether the description, whether the market is foggy, that's a problem. Because if you have to explain something to a potential reader, you've lost them. And this is why, and we're going to do a minisode on focusing on the details, but this is why you have like a half a second to get people's attention. So in most cases, you're not in front of your reader when they're looking on Amazon and trying to decide what book they want to buy. You basically just lost them, because Amazon's not going to pop up and say, "Oh, let me explain this book better to you, Sally, so that you understand what this author's actually trying to offer."
No, that's very true. Yep.
The confused mind won't make any choices. So ask yourself, have I had to explain my book one too many times to people, and what can I do to solve that problem? And you may not have that answer, but it may be an opportunity to work with a professional or somebody who can give you, some really good feedback on where the disconnect might be. So that's it for this mini. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is Penny Sansbury and Amy Cornell. Bye-bye.